Hey again, guys. So I just finished doing the one video you're probably going to see now. It's my inaugural video. This is going to be a shorter video. So that's why I'm dressed the same way because it's literally doing it right after. But I decided, I wanted to talk a little bit about one other thing, and that, of course, is something that most people have already spoken about, and that's PlayStation 5 and why we're not seeing the actual console yet. So my opinions on gaming journalism and gaming nowadays is obviously the one thing that's holding everything back is what's holding everything back. And I'm sorry, it's going to affect the gaming world just as much as any other world that we live in. But aside from that, let's talk about what we already know. Uh, I like what someone wrote that the actual controller looks like a canvas. I do agree with that. The PlayStation 5 controller, the Dual Sense controller, the first one, uh, looks interesting enough. A lot of people say it looks like an Xbox One controller, Xbox Series X controller. Pretty much both controllers look similar, but who cares? Aesthetics aside, they're two different things. One has literally put more innovation into it than the other, and that, of course, is the Dual Sense. The fact that it's going to rumble in different ways, it's going to have a different grip on it, it's going to feel like something that we never felt before in gaming. Immersive, innovative gaming in general. So I'm kind of going off the cusp here. I'm not really using any pre disposition here. So let's just talk real quick. So the reason behind not seeing the PlayStation 5 yet is because Sony has always done this. I have been through every console war that's existed prior to 1986, and I remember exclusively, excuse me, the Super Nintendo Genesis, and that one was always the case of being the big two at the time. And of course, the Super Nintendo completely outsold the Sega Genesis like 4-1. Completely won that console cycle war. So we're going into the next one, and it's the same old. The guy that's ahead always shows up last, and the guy that needs to make back and do things right in Xbox Series X, of course. Now that we've seen that the whole thing works, it's like as I get older, it's like it's the same argument. Why is it that one company does it a certain way? Because those are how the companies work. They're not going to change their policies for every single console cycle. It's the same policies they've had. It's the same marketing strategies. It's the same thing. They change it up slightly, but the R&D is where they really have to be innovative. And when it comes to tech, if you're not innovative, you're not doing anything. And consoles have always lagged behind PC, and that's fine. I don't care. You don't buy a console for the same reason you buy a PC gaming system. Exclusivity is what you want. Xbox has never understood that Xbox has to have exclusivity rights where PC doesn't get it, but Microsoft doesn't allow that. And that's where Microsoft fails. And that's why Microsoft failed so drastically last console cycle. That's why they pretty much barely succeeded, and they really fundamentally lost, there's that word, in the cycle before that with the 360. Gaming is itself no longer just a kid toy. It hasn't been a kid toy for like two generations now. A lot of people don't quite understand that. Your grandparents don't understand it. Your great grandparents, your parents probably might get that because they're probably gamers themselves. But gaming is and always will be about an entertainment console system that sits under my beautiful, large, big screen television. And that is where we fail to see that the Xbox Series X doesn't look like it's going to be something that's going to look nice under my television's console on my entertainment stand. It just doesn't look like that. Now, if the PlayStation goes the same route, I think both consoles are just going to have a design flaw. But the problem is they're starting to look more like PCs. And I get it. PCs run at much higher frame rates. They run at much stronger outputs. Not their battery, excuse me, but their energy sources are much bigger. They have to have larger fans to cool them down faster. Some of them use liquid cooling systems because they're so powerful. So I get that they have to have this weird like stand look. And I think the PlayStation 5 is almost going to look identical in many ways to the Xbox Series X, and that's why we're not seeing it. I don't think they're going to do a full threshold redesign on it, or not threshold, excuse me, a full trash and redesign what they have. I think that it is kind of the evolution of consoles. They're going to go that route, and I get it. And with TVs getting more and more powerful, I mean, we're going to see 8K within the next 5 years become the norm. I'd say 10 years it will become the standard overall, and then we're going to probably see 16K, which after that it's really just your brain cannot process it. So anything past 8K or 16K literally is not worth the price. It's just a marketing tool, and I think that's what television is going to do. Now, the real change for television design is going to be what the screens are made out of, like some type of liquidized gel, some type of light emitting diode system that allows for it. That already, like OLED was the big thing. There was another big push. I remember going to consumer electronics shows when I was younger. I went to Macworld even. I saw like HD before anybody else, and I was like, oh wow, that's really impressive. And you're watching this thing, and you're seeing, wow, that's a really clear cut picture. You're not going to see that anywhere else. And you're seeing all these things in in commercial tech and commercial communications tech, and I find it interesting that we're worrying more about what the design of a PlayStation 5 because I get the fanboyism, I get it. You guys just want to know what you're buying. I get it. It's a futures market. And the problem with futures markets are that if you think that the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X is going to be one way or the other, you want to know which one you're going to buy. Well, if you're a Sony fan, you're probably going to buy a Sony system. If you're a Microsoft fan, you're probably going to buy a Microsoft system. But we don't know. Sony could completely F it all up, and we're all going to be playing on Microsoft. Or Microsoft could have bitten off more they can chew with their system, and nothing runs on it. The thing overheats. The thing doesn't have a good time, clock time. The thing can fall apart instantly. It can have the red ring of death scenario that the 360, put through it, or the Xbox One, where a lot of people were having problems with that drive. And remember, the Blu-ray was the biggest fight. That even though Blu-ray won out, that means if you wanted to play Blu-ray, disc, and a lot of people said, "Oh, physical discs are going out." Listen, they've been saying that for years, and physical is still a top seller. I think this console cycle will kill, physical copies more and more as I've gotten off the bandwagon of physical copies. I've always been pro physical. But here's the thing: copies themselves, like if you're a collector, you want to collect the game, and sometimes you want to buy extra versions of it because fun times are ahead where it's going to be like 5 to 10 times more expensive to own that game or to sell that game, like next console cycle down, right down the road. Especially if the game is a rarity or a collector's edition, it's going to be worth something to you. So there's the collector who wants the physical copy that comes with all the extra, doodads and so on. And then there's the I just want to play the game digital copy. And eventually those two are going to merge into one thing. I think that's going to happen next console cycle. I've been following this stuff for years. I think that gaming journalists are lying all the time to you. I mean, Kingdom Hearts was a great example. Kingdom Hearts 3. Remember, guys, announced a whole console cycle after. Same thing with The Last Guardian, which turned out to be a big flop for most people. And it makes me think that gaming in general is in dire straits, and I think it will be. I think they're going to lose billions of dollars this year. I think they're going to lose billions of dollars in the next 5 years overall, what they should have made. And I think the tech is going to suffer for it. And that's where it hurts me because I'm always fascinated by what the tech's going to bring. I like seeing new technologies. I like seeing new communication technologies. I like seeing a bigger, better television. I want the better mousetrap. I want to see it. So hopefully we get that in the next couple of years, where we get back on track and these consoles are back on track and they're going to look nice. They're going to look beautiful. But let's get over it. The PlayStation 5 itself, it's going to be what it's going to be. Those who like it are going to buy it for essentials, and those who don't like it are going to go with Microsoft simply because, well, they think it's a better system and it's more expensive, perhaps, and perhaps it's a better system in regards to what it does. But I don't know. I don't think it's really that much different. I mean, there are some limitations to the technology. You can push it and push it and push it, but I hate to tell you, you can put all the bells and whistles into your console. It doesn't mean that it's going to run the software properly. And that's what people don't get. If my software doesn't run properly and I can't, and my game is always crashing on me, it's always doing this. I've had very few crashes with my PS4, for example, but I've heard horror stories about the crashes on the Xbox One. Now, of course, I am not necessarily just a fanboy. I just happen to, have a PlayStation mug. But that doesn't make me say, well, if PlayStation, messes it all up, I'd rather put my money where something else is going to be better. And it better useful. But here's the thing: I don't like everything that's on Microsoft. I just don't think Microsoft is as innovative. I don't think it's as good to its customer fan base. Not that Sony's any better, but let's be honest, that's a problem with the whole entire thing. It's not just one company. Customer service is terrible in every aspect of tech. Try to talk to these people for 5 minutes on the phone and say, hey, why is this doing this, or why is this overheating, or how do I clock this in, or how do I do that? That's always been a problem. I mean, Nintendo Power or Nintendo Helpline or whatever it was back in the day was a prime example of like how you do it and how you do it right, or at least what I remember. But then again, I was like 5 at the time. Um, so let's get back to one last thing before we finish up here, and that is why we're not seeing it. I guarantee you in the next 2 months you're going to see it. If they're really going to launch this thing in December 2020, you're going to get all of the aspects that you were supposed to get probably in June when they host like another state of play. I mean, remember they do state of play, they do their own E3. E3 is canceled this year, and that's a whole other can of worms that we're not going to open up, and how I'm kind of partially excited about that myself. But I think that these big cons are a scam anyway. I mean, I've been to them before, and I got to say, there's nothing there that I couldn't have been told in a brief conference interview or anything that they have. All I ever see there is what we call in the industry vaporware. I have seen more vaporware from Apple, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, etc., than I've ever seen in my life. Sony is the biggest, and I've been a fan, but Sony is like one of the biggest when it comes to software issues. And their vaporware for, oh, we're going to do this amazing demo, we're going to do this amazing update, we're going to do this amazing structure, we're going to build this thing from the ground up, and it's horrible. Their hardware, however, has always been superb. I've never had a problem with their hardware. The PlayStation 2 still works, and both my PlayStations still work. And my PS3, I tore it apart once and I put it back together. It still works. It probably works better than it did when I first had it. And I have to say, it's incredible. Underappreciated, undervalued system, even though it did technically win that console war. And I loved it. I thought the PlayStation 3 was when the games worked on it properly, and they did. Majority of them did. When they were actually coded well, I think it's almost has less flaws than the PlayStation 4. I still think it's a far better system. The PS2, of course, being the most popularized system in the world, has its flaws too. Was probably one of the most difficult systems to work on. But Sony's always made it difficult to work on their systems because they like to lock them out. They don't want third parties stealing some of their innovations, and they have less innovation with this one. The heating time on the PS4 has always been an issue, but I've never had it get to a point where I had to turn it off, and it's always on, and never had a problem with it yet. Knock on wood. But let's be clear here. These systems have their issues, they have their problems, they have their focuses, and they all have their pros and cons. But vaporware is what you're going to see at these big conventions, and that is the problem that we're seeing now. Hardware is becoming the new vaporware, where it used to be software, it used to be an add-on or something like that. Like, oh, the new Final Cut Pro X times 10, 15 that I used to have to go and look at Macworld when it was still there. It wasn't Final Cut Pro X back then. It was like Final Cut 4 or Final Cut 5. I liked it. I thought it was cool that I could video edit that way. I think that all video makers nowadays are basically up to snuff. But let's be honest, it's the Ferrari versus the you know, the Volkswagen, really, if you will. I always thought that Final Cut Pro was the best, but Now it's like, it's a shitty little application that you download. I don't. Ever since Tim Cook took over Apple, it's been horrible. I haven't really been a fan of it. Steve Jobs was always my guy. Steve Wozniak was really my guy. Obviously, I was a big Wozniak fan, and I think that what we're seeing now is Microsoft is kind of taking all the cool things that Apple did and doing them now. But the problem is they're always copying and pasting, just like they did when it was Xerox, and just like they did back with the Coleco, the Commodore 64, which is probably the most popular computer in all of history. I mean, there's still people probably using it today, and we are now seeing this as consoles are becoming more like computers. So we're going to look back 10 years from now and say, oh, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, they were marketed in different ways, and this is why one was successful and the other was not. The way that they're marketing the Series X, I think, is strong at the beginning, but I don't think it's going to hold up when it comes to the software. I think it's going to have people saying, I don't want to have to work within your parameters. These games are going to have to be funded, excuse me, by you know Microsoft's. Well, Microsoft got the money to fund, but by buying out third parties to develop games for them, they're basically doing the opposite of what Nintendo does, and that's they develop exclusive first party titles. Nintendo is the king of first party exclusivity, and they are also very protective of their licenses, as you can see with a lot of the charges coming up now. But when we look at and we promote a an understanding of why this stuff really doesn't matter in the long run, is that they're all going to make their billions. We're all going to have our games, and we're all going to just be happy with them because that's what we have. I personally think that Sony is going to succeed by what I'm seeing and hearing. The controller alone is far more fascinating than anything I've seen the Xbox Series X do yet. It's just a faster, souped-up version of the Xbox One, but that doesn't make it bad. And I also think that Xbox kind of shot themselves in the foot with marketing the name, marketing the product. Some of the cool stuff that they do show on it, like I do like that they're taking some risk, but IP wise, they haven't taken any serious risk compared to Sony. And that's the problem. You need more IPs. You need a new generation to have new characters, new games, new stories. And all we really get, majority of obviously going to be first person shooters and maybe some RPGs. I would love to see new RPGs because you could do a lot of unique things with RPGs. And some survival horror hopefully will come back. I know Sony is in talks of potentially buying the Silent Hill franchise out from under Konami, although rumors are fictitious at this point. I would be very happy to see that happen. I think Sony would do a great job. Sony is amazing when it comes to survival horror. The Evil Within being published exclusively through both Bethesda and for the PlayStation was really. Actually, I don't think it was just for the PlayStation. Don't quote me on that, but they had a big hand in it, I believe, with Capcom doing the game too, and it was amazing. Now, again, I could be wrong. However, let's finish this up by just saying Sony is and always will be one of those platforms that they're going to hold out on you until the very end. They did it with the PlayStation 2. I mean, if you look at the dev kits that they showed off, they're not going to be anything special. They're not going to do anything like that. And that's okay. I don't need them to do anything fundamentally huge for the next couple of months. Just show me the what the system's capable of and tell me what extra little bells and whistles you're adding on, and I'm a happy camper too. The games, I don't really care. I mean, they're next gen titles. They're going to be either really good or they're going to be really bad depending on the publisher. You can't say, oh, I got to know what the games are going to look like, because that's all going to be dependent on the publisher. Devolver Entertainment, for example, or Devolver Digital is going to be a prime example of like, hey, we're going to make this 2-bit looking game on a next gen console, which was a big rough for me. I always said I can't stand, why am I playing an 8-bit game on a 6th generation, 7th generation console cycle? Now we're going to like what? The next gen consoles are going to have 2D models. I mean, I don't care if it's done properly, if the game is well thought out, but I did not buy this beautiful $600-$700 system on my 4K television to play something that looks like my Super Nintendo. If I wanted that, I'll hook up my Super Nintendo. I'll hook up my NES. I'll hook up my Atari. I don't care. If you're trying to make a statement or a bold point, or you're trying to placate to the artistic, bourgeois of it all, I don't care. I just want to play a game that is a game and it has a core value, it has a core function, it has a core being. I want something I want to keep coming back to. I want something I'm going to enjoy. But hey, whatever. Let's say Sony shows up something in the next couple of days. I mean, for all I know, they could be releasing the information this Tuesday. It makes sense. I would say this Tuesday or next month, sometime on a Tuesday or Wednesday, evening or early afternoon, we're going to get something concrete from Sony. But I'm pretty happy with just the controller outlet because it shows to me that they're trying to do something and take some risks. Because this controller could be a gimmick. This controller that is supposed to really incite that, or it could just be a ploy to say, hey, our games are going to look that great, but this controller is going to give them a better functionality that they would have not had if we just had a Rumble Pack in it, or the Dual Shock Pack. I don't want to say Rumble Pack, that's Nintendo, but that's what we're going to see. And I don't want to align myself with any particular side yet, but obviously some of my, let's be honest, some of my prejudices are already been placated there, but I just don't like Microsoft as a company. I didn't like them for years. I was always an Apple guy, but now I've kind of gotten out of the fanboyism of it all because I never really was a true fanboy. I just said if the product was better, I'm going to buy the better product. If the product fails, I'm going to never support you anymore. I vote with my dollar. I vote with my dollar signs and my wallet. And when I vote with my wallet, I am exclusively saying I'm trusting you with the future of your tech because that's what I'm buying. I am giving you my money, and that's what a futures are. When you buy a system, you're buying a futures. You're saying I am trusting you to give me the best entertainment for my money. Now, when people say, "Oh, it's a cheaper console," I'm like, look, it's not that. They just know that there are certain prices that work in the market for them that don't work in the market for other people. Now, I guarantee you that the problems with the PS3 being like a $600 console, it was $599 at launch, and I bought one. I did. And it's not because I'm super fucking rich. It's just because I saved up for it, and I knew it was going to be expensive. They didn't. It wasn't like they just plopped it on you. They plopped it on you nearly a year and a half before they officially released the system. And yeah, not many people could save $600 in that time. But I didn't buy it right at launch. I bought it a couple of months after when I had saved up and I was trying to save up like a dollar here, a dollar there, and I bought it. Not because I was saying, "Oh, this is over the top. This is great." It was a good system, and it was It was probably the best system released in that generation. As the PS4, in my opinion, is probably the best generation system currently. So when we're talking about what does it have to look like? Why does it have to look like this? Why is it going to be shrouded in secrecy? And everybody's scared that, oh, maybe it doesn't work. And there's always negative outputs about, oh, it's going to look like this. Like, listen, if you truly watch what Sony does, Sony is not going to, it's basically going Nintendo's route. They're going to tell you everything you want to tell you at the time that they tell you it. And that's on their own time. Follow that logic, right? They're going to tell you at their state of play. They're going to tell you when they decide to, and they're probably going to tell you around June, July, or not June. It's going to be May or June. So literally in a month, we'll have information about the PS5 that was not released currently. And the dev conference that everybody was like, "Ooh, this was boring." I'm like, look, there's a lot of stuff there that was hard to follow, even if you're a tech guy. And if you're a tech head, you know what they were saying, a little bit what was boisterous, and a lot of it was for their own inner circles of people saying, hey, guys, when you develop games on our site, our console, know that this is why it's doing this. We have fixed the problems here. The clocking time on it's going to be a little slower in some ways, but you can then use this system that we instilled into it to make it easier to run your game. All right? That's what they're saying. And that's pretty much what they said. And they're saying, you know what? Don't worry, we're going to make it so these guys can put whatever size hard drive they're into it, but 860, whatever, 828 gigs, 868 gigs, whatever the hell it was, that's going to be the baseline. But you can easily replace it with like 2 terabytes especially because 2 terabytes right now is probably an extra $100, maybe $200, and that'll bring the entire console up to about a $500. I'm pretty sure they'll have a version of it that comes with a 2 terabyte, but it won't be at launch. And there'll probably be a pro version of it, or I wouldn't call it a pro version, probably maybe pro. They'll probably call it pro, but it'll be something like that. And it's going to look like what we expect it to look like. It's probably going to be this white stand-up console that the Xbox Series X looks like. And I'm not deterring anybody from that style. I just think that that's what they're all going to be tower-based now. They're not the first tower-based consoles. They just happen to be the most recent tower-based consoles because we haven't seen one in years. And if you really have a PS4 or PS2, most of those can stand up in a tower style. I mean, the PS2 was a tower. It was literally a small little computer tower that was considered so powerful it was considered dangerous to use if you had too many of them because it could probably launch a nuke or something. That was the big scandal or fake news at the time back in like 2000 when they were saying that 1999 2000, and that's what we're going to see here is that it's just going to be a basic stand-up, and most people want their console to stand up. I know almost everybody I know has a console that stands up. It saves you room on your shelf, but I don't think it looks nice. And I also worry about it tipping over. I worry about other stuff. I think when it's laying on its side, it's less chances of any moving parts getting hurt. And we all know the one thing that makes any computer system fail isn't so much the heat, isn't so much the wear and tear, it's the moving parts. So that's what concerns me. And when you have moving parts standing up on its own time, that becomes an issue. So thank you for listening. I didn't expect this to go as long as it did again, but I ramble. But thank you so much for listening. And I hope this was more to your liking in regards to what I was going to say. I think that if you're a PlayStation fan, the look of it is going to be what it is. It's going to be this stand-up console out of the box, I believe. I think that's the new standard because that's really the best way to keep it from overheating is just standing up. That's just every core tower ever knows that. Every cooling system. And liquid systems will probably be in the next generation console. I think that liquid core systems that cool with solid state drives becoming the norm, and that being something that we've had since like 2015, 2016 in most other consoles. This will be pretty much standard for your thing. But I think that the goal is to make a very cheap PC. That's what I think these things will be hacked into eventually, and that's the point. You know, the base gamer doesn't like to mod, they don't like to function, and I really hope that both systems are mod friendly. This time around, mods need to be essential for your console games if you're going to survive in this world. So mods better be prevalent in both systems. And if I can modify the hardware, which PlayStation says I can do out of the box, then I'm sold. I can do whatever the hell I want. If I choose not to ever mod the whole thing in my life, it won't affect the core system or the core playthrough of the game. It's not going to affect the core experience, if you will. So anyway, thank you for listening and have a good night. And also, one last thing. I will be streaming more as we go along. I just figured I'd do these 2 videos because I'm so excited to change this channel up, and thank you for watching about writing. I'll do more like in-depth on writing and my experiences, but more importantly your questions about it, and hopefully I get some of your questions. And I will be talking about other things besides writing. Maybe I'll do some little history, maybe I'll do a little bit of science, anything that is interesting to talk about. I like the paranormal. I like everything like that too. So I want to talk about when you watch someone talk about something, it's about, hey, where's the fan base? So we're going to be like that. We're going to have this whole thing be about that. So thank you so much. I hope you realize that there's nothing to worry about in regards to Sony and Microsoft and all those. They're both going to make them billions. They're both going to make lots of money off of games. And gaming is going to go up while movies and going out is going to go down, because I hate to tell you, this is the new normal. People are not going to, they're going to have too much fear the next year or two to go out during this time of year and go see movies and go do all these things. They're not going to want to do it. And the gaming has become pretty much commonplace for us guys and gals, youth in general. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to play these games on a constant basis. We're going to do that, and that's why we're so concerned, because this is going to be our outlet. This is going to be how we experience entertainment. Whereas before, it would be going to the theater, buying some popcorn. Our homes are theaters now. I mean, that's been something I've expected to be the norm last decade. Like, I even said Hollywood's dying. Nobody's going. It's not making anywhere near the amount of money that gaming is. It's not making any amount of money where even primetime television has gotten, because primetime television has gotten so loosely uh, censored, or that are uncensored. It doesn't matter. There's so much cool shit on there now that we don't even worry about it. We watch these innovative television shows that are good sitcoms, good dramas, and they have a budget that's just a very small budget, but they all play out like these big Hollywood produced television shows. It's really cool. And that's because other non primetime networks have made that a standard too, like FX for Justified, shows like that. There's been a lot of shows like Eureka, for example, from in the last 10 years that has innovated like both the CGI technologies of television shows and so on. So there's a multitude of different examples that we have. Gaming is there. I think gaming will overshadow Hollywood in the next 5 years. In fact, it's pretty much already has. It's just going to get bigger, and it's going to get crazier, and it's going to get to a point where we're never ever going to see Hollywood bounce back, because, quite frankly, all they do is push this thing that we don't care about. They're constantly making remakes because they know that they sell, and I think that's over. I think that's really pretty much done with. Nobody cares. The superhero movies have kind of lost their spurt. I thought they were horrible to begin with. I'm a very anti-Marvel fan. I hated Marvel. I thought that the DC movies were just as bad, but I think DC as a company is far more interesting with their characters. Still, Marvel was garbage. I hate to say it, but anybody who really sits back and watches any of those movies will see they're just as bad, because they're bro movies. That's why people like them so much. They're the bro movies. It's like hanging with my bros. They're chilling, and that's kind of the problem with the movie. It's it's not a story. It's not a tale of heroism. I mean, say what you want about DC, but Wonder Woman's film was better than almost anything Marvel has put out in the last 15 years. 15 years. I'm talking, we're going near Tobey Maguire. Hell, we're going before him in many ways, and just saying that nothing has been that great. Avengers Endgame, say what you want about it. I mean, this could be a whole different topic, but Hollywood, the games are better than the movies. Let's just put it that way. The games are better. The Wolverine game is better than the movie. So what does that tell you about where Hollywood is going? I have yet to get enthusiastic about a movie that's coming out, or was deemed to be coming out in the year 2020. I wasn't even excited about anything in 2019. Nothing. Nothing enthralled me enough to want to go out and spend money. I only went out because I figured it was a night out. And realistically, I don't even remember what movies I saw, except maybe Knives Out. Knives Out was a little more innovative than I expected from Hollywood. It was a little different, and I respected at least the old-fashioned murder mystery system that should be making a comeback, but hey, whatever. Anyway, I'm off on a rant there. I like to go off on tangents. I hope you like that too, but let's be honest here, guys. I I don't think any of us really, anybody who fundamentally enthusiastically looks forward to the next console cycle, anyone who is legitimately excited and going to go out and buy it first day, gives a damn what it looks like, so long as it's not something that's completely oblong or abstract to what is commonality. Commonality is what keeps us from forming these headlong opinions. But you know what? I think that Sony's innovative. I think Sony's designs are more innovative than we are giving them. Until we get our hands on that controller, it looks like an Xbox controller to most people, but I guarantee it's a lot more unique than that. And a lot of people, I think they should have never kowtowed to. oh, the Xbox controller is so much better. Listen, I play with both controllers. I had these tiny little fucking hands here, and I'll tell you one thing: I can't stand the Xbox controller. I absolutely hate it. I don't like the awkward putting put-ons of the where the two analog buttons are. I'm not a big fan of those. I kind of hate to say it, but whenever I use anything, I mostly play fighting games. I much prefer an arcade stick. But when it comes to controllers, I am still a fan of the PlayStation 4 controller. I like this design. The only thing I hope they do fix is this. This is where a lot of people have the problem, and I do like where the light is, but I do kind of like that the PS5 controllers, the lights are kind of like going to be this sexy little inlay. But this right here, it just works. It just absolutely works. And you gotta love the berry blue, right? You gotta love the berry blue. Uh, yeah, that's it right there. That's probably gonna be the thumbnail for the video. I might just take a thumbnail with this thing. But yeah, uh, the PS5 controller in general, we could talk about that. But everybody's talked that into nonsense, and it's more hearsay. And we already know what it's gonna be. Sony gave us that weird little white thing that most people were not interested in. I still think that's the prototype design. I mean, and when I say prototype design, I mean it's not the finished painted product that we'll be receiving. And if it is, if that white, boring, bland thing is the standard controller, I guarantee we'll have plenty of controllers coming out with different color aspects and SKUs, different logo designs and stuff like that. So I don't want to hear anybody complain about that. I care more about the functionality. Now, I heard the rumor was, remember when the PS4 was supposed to have like this weird touch thing on the back of it, or I think that was the PS Vita where it had that weird little touchpad that has like the symbols on the back of it. I wonder if they're going to do something like that too with that dual sense. Is it going to be like something that we can actually feel? Is it like going to be like a nanotech skin design on the back of it, and that's why it has to be white because any type of coloring would affect the controller? Who knows? Who knows? Looks like molded plastic to me. I'm pretty sure it's all what's built. It's going to probably be somewhat liquidy gel on the back, though. All right, we always talked for almost 40 minutes here about PlayStation 5, and I really covered nothing because nobody knows what it's going to look like. Nobody cares, really. I mean, the only people who care are a few people who want to, post pictures of it and maybe get a couple of Instagram exclusivities and stuff like that. I just don't care. I don't care. I care more about the core aspects of the system. But thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I don't know why you would want to sit there and listen to me talk for almost 40 minutes, but if you did, you must really love me, or you must be obsessed, or maybe you're just watching something else and I happen to be in the background. Maybe you like the soothing sounds of my voice. Who knows? But anyway, thanks for watching.